VOWR800.
Hello and welcome to Going Strong, the show that celebrates a culture that is creative, vibrant, second to none. My name is Deborah Collins, and each week I speak with musicians, artists, actors, storytellers, producers, cultural historians whose talents and dedication make our culture unique and keep it going strong, who make us proud here at home and put us on the global map. My guest today has done just that. A trailblazer of a musician whose signature Celtic sound has been fused with other musical influences to create something utterly unique, who plays a dozen musical instruments, who founded the province's first reggae band more than 30 years ago, who was the first solo Newfoundland artist to be signed to a worldwide record deal, a musical collaborator who's produced several albums and is about to launch a new one, and who has done it all without being able to physically see a single note. Who else could I be talking about but the musically gifted and insightful Jim Fidler? Welcome to Going Strong.
Well, thank you very much. And geez, that's quite the intro. How am I supposed to live up to that?
Well, you know something? I'm tuckered out just reading the highlights of your career.
I don't believe it. No. Sounds all exaggerated to me.
Well, I'm going to ask you to defend it all, of course.
Okay.
And I want to get into a lot of it, but I'd be remiss if I didn't say that the music that we hear every week at the opening and closing of this show is a Jim Fidler composition called In Through the Narrows. Yep. It's so bright and lively, so nautical, I can practically see a sailor playing a hornpipe up on the deck. Thank you for sharing that with us.
It's my honor and my pleasure.
You know, Jim, we're going to hear the full song a little later. We only hear a small portion of it, of course, on this show. But we're going to hear the full song a little later and talk about it some more. Okay. But first, I'd like to go back a few decades with you. And as a boy, you attended the School for the Blind in Halifax. And while in that city, you were classically trained in piano and music theory, I should say. A pretty solid foundation for the career that was to be. At what point did you know that music would be your lifelong passion?
Well, I knew it was creative stuff because I always had ideas and story ideas, and I actually wrote a book when I was, I don't know, maybe 12 years old. It's right? Long since disappeared and gone. But music was from maybe about age 6 or so. Well, I got a radio when I was 2 years old, so I was listening to music in the 60s. You know, firsthand knowing music that kind of, I guess somebody my age might have no business knowing. So as of 1967, I was listening to the radio every day and listening to the AMDX at nighttime, tuning around, listening to stations coming in from stateside and so on. And picked up musical instruments 5, 6 years old-ish. So from that point on, I guess it was the thing that I would have to put away to do my homework, which is often an indication of somebody's, God-given abilities. Yeah.
Passion?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's in my blood, too. It turns out subsequently, like in my 20s, I met my father's side of the family for the first time, and all music over there and all music on my mother's side as well.
So it's in the DNA.
Yeah. Yeah.
And, the bedrock of your music is Celtic traditional, but over the years, it's also been blended with blues, jazz, bluegrass, pop, reggae. Your first solo album, for example, was called Gypsy, and then the band that catapulted you to a household name here in the province was the reggae band Pressure Drop. How important has that fusion of influences been in your work?
Well, for me, I don't even really look at it as a fusion. If I were a painter, I would paint different things. So I guess it's looked at as a fusion if I'm trying to be pigeonholed. But if you just look at me as an artist, I paint different stuff, right? Mm-hmm. I don't just paint the same thing over and over.
Right.
And the same with a chef, cooks different. Oh my God, wow, what a fusion of, well, yes, we need the creme brulee and we need the meat and the entree and so that's it. For me, really, it's music and expression depending on what you want to say. For example, reggae is like the newspaper. It's like the people's news. It's a great delivery system for a message. And where there are messages in other styles of music as well, reggae is just really great for that. And instrumental music is good for stimulating the mind's eye. So in the case of if I really want someone to sort of see something in their mind, sometimes lyrics get in the way. So it's all a matter of just reaching for the right tool for the right job, I think. So I don't really think of it as I'm playing this style today or that style. And over the years, I've never switched styles. Pretty much anything that I've done, say, over the years at any given point in time, I had in me all along. It's just a matter of just finally getting around to doing that thing.
Yeah. You just said an interesting thing. You used the phrase "in your mind's eye." And that raises an interesting thought. And I'm curious, we often hear that when you don't have the full sense of one sense, the full use of one sense, the others become heightened, more finely tuned. And I'm thinking that certainly would have been your experience.
I think it's just a matter of you pay more attention, more so, really, than anything. I think it's just, your other senses don't actually get more voltage or anything. I think you just pay more attention because, let's face it, eyesight, vision is, in many cases, a complete distraction. I'll give you a short example. Two people. The blind guy steps to the curb. He listens and steps forward and crosses the street. There's a car coming. He hears it. He crosses the street. The sighted person gets part way across the street, hears the car, turns to look, and gets hit. I don't know if I said that quite right, but the whole idea is the blind person hears it and knows where it is.
Yes.
The sighted person would have just put his whole life on hold and have to turn and have visual confirmation before, seeing is believing.
Yes, yes.
And he ends up getting hit by the car. So there's a lot going on in the world around us that's not just visual. Yeah. And a lot of times we're quite fixated on.
Yeah. Well, that's on the visual. That's right.
Yeah.
And of course, sound is your life and your passion. I want to just ask you about the new album, your newest album. It's entitled RPM Volume 2, your first in 10 years, a sequel to the one you produced exactly 10 years ago.
Yep.
Why now? Why is it 10 years in the making? Does a good Volume 2 take time to percolate?
Well, it wasn't actually, I wasn't working on it for 10 years. I don't know. The first album was, it's a concept album, like a, 70s concept album, like The Wall or Dark Side of the Moon or Thick as a Brick or whatever. And there's a fictitious character called Mickey Finn. So it's kind of like my stepping outside of myself and being able to do something. Kind of like when the Beatles were kind of tired of being the Beatles and all of the hoopla, and they kind of put on different hats and became Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band. Mm-hmm. It's kind of like that for me. So I kind of stepped away from myself. I did think about maybe releasing Volume 1 under the name Mickey Finn, actually, but I didn't. Mm-hmm. And at the end of the first, not to give away too much of the story, but there is a thread from beginning to end, and both albums played one after the other. It's sequential. At the end of the first album, he's kind of gotten his fame and fortune and found out it wasn't all it was cracked up to be, and kind of goes Rip Van Winkle. And then I've thought it was time to wake him up and see what happened to him 10 years later, and that's Volume 2.
Well, if you could describe Volume 2 in a couple of sentences, the kind of music, the style of music, what people are actually going to hear, in 2 or 3 sentences, what would you say?
Right good.
You don't even need 3 sentences.
No, if you like, for example, except for the repetition where you keep hearing the same songs over and over, if you enjoy listening to any classic rock station, for example, or whatever, I think you'd love this album because there was a project called The Ruttles that was like Monty Python and Neil Innes, the Bonzo Doodah Dog Band. George Harrison was involved with it. It was a takeoff on the Beatles. So they did songs that very much sounded like Beatles songs, but they weren't. They were Beatle-esque. So there's Supertramp-esque, Moody Blues-esque, Beatles-esque. Mm-hmm. There's all kinds of music on there that's in the spirit of, but it's not a parody. It's not like the song
drawn from them.
Yeah, it's created in the spirit of. So if you like all that stuff, if you like Supertramp and the Moody Blues and the Beatles and Pink Floyd and all that stuff, and you would say, boy, boy, I wish somebody these days would put out an album with that kind of boy. They don't make that kind of music anymore. Well,
Well, you
at least I did, and yeah, I think anybody would enjoy it.
Well, we're going to hear a song from the new album.
Okay.
It has fantastic instrumentation and a wonderful message. It's called Peace of Mind.
Sorry to interrupt you, but yes, I co-wrote that with Lillian, actually.
Is that right?
And if it weren't for Lillian, this wouldn't have been on the album. I had it pushed off the edge. I didn't have it completed. It was just an idea, and she said, it's got to be on there. It's got to be on there.
Your wife, Lillian,
She pushed me, and then finally I said, well, let's sit down and write the rest of the lyrics, and we did, and here it is.
Well, that's wonderful. And again, called Peace of Mind. Today, more than ever, I think we can all agree that's something that we all need. Well, let's have a listen, and then you can tell me why that message at this time. And that was Peace of Mind from Jim Fidler's brand new album, RPM Volume 2. Jim is my guest today on Going Strong. Wow, some pretty vivid imagery there, Jim. I love some of those phrases, a light in the darkness and it's shining, a wave on the ocean and it's falling, the past and the present and it's teaching. What were you trying to say there? What message were you trying to share?
I don't know.
You're just thinking about those things now. But yeah, no, it's a great past and the present and it's teaching. Yeah.
That whole thing, what do they know back then, and all that, what is the purpose? People say, we should know history so it doesn't repeat itself. Mm-hmm. Well, some things need to be repeated. We can't be throwing everything out. Yeah. Can't be throwing out morality. We can't be throwing out family. We can't be throwing out love. We can't be throwing out friendship, duty, commitment, being able to be counted upon.
Yeah.
And be relied upon. So we need those things. We need those. What's the plural of compass? Compi?
Yeah, that's right. Compasses, yeah.
We need those compi.
That's right, to navigate.
Yeah.
And,
into the future.
Yeah. And I mean, for musicians such as yourself, you're well known, you've been a mainstay here. You're well established. Apart from doing really beautiful, technically good music, do you feel perhaps in some way a little responsibility to share some of those important messages as well in your music?
Always. Yeah, I mean, really. You can go and have a conversation with somebody and misspeak, perhaps. It's not what we intend to do. But sometimes, in the heat of the moment, we may say something that we wish we hadn't said. In this case, it's carved in stone. I can't take it back.
That's right.
And
it's out there.
Yeah. And some people wonder, what's out there for me? Well, there's nothing out there for you. What's in you for us? That's not what the world has for you. What do you have for the world? So I'm very conscious of that. I figured this out after much, contemplation. I figured out that, and same for all of you listening, you're going to die. So what about between now and then? So I'm very conscious of that. And I have been for a long time. When I made Gypsy, like in 95, I was very consciously making something that hopefully would outlive me. And I always think of that.
And you're a musician who lives and works here in this province. What does the phrase Newfoundland musician mean to you?
Newfoundland musician, to me, aside from the obvious, a musician who's a Newfoundlander, well, I think that's probably what it does mean, really. I mean, honestly, if you're playing in a heavy metal band, you're a Newfoundland musician. And what is Newfoundland music? Well, that's a tough one, isn't it? It's kind of, Irish music with American country music blended together, pretty much. I mean, in all honesty, like, what is it? It's hard to put a finger on. I always hoped that over the years, somehow we would come together and be able to cooperate and kind of do what they did in Jamaica, where they got together and they all agreed, like, let's do this with the horns, let's do that with the rhythm section, and make their own music called reggae. I was hoping that would happen here, but at least to this point it hasn't. I reached out to a few people over the years. Everyone's doing their own thing. It's not like I had the answer, I had a formula or anything, but it never did quite happen. So I guess a Newfoundland musician, let's say, for example, someone like Pamela Morgan or myself. Now, other people happen to be Newfoundlanders who play music, but some people are more conscious of it, and not to get into the other brand of people that we refer to as professional Newfoundlanders. That's a whole other case, and I don't consider myself or Pamela to be that, but aware of who we are, where we come from, so that no matter what kind of music we're playing, we're ambassadors for this great historic place that has challenged those who came before us greatly. And obviously the fact that we're here bears out that they succeeded.
Well said. And you certainly know how to capture this place in music and paint very vivid images. We're about to hear the full rendition of In Through the Narrows, which, of course, is the opening and closing music of this show. So set up In Through the Narrows very briefly. What images do you want the listeners to see in these notes?
This is very deliberately, I sound paint. So I paint pictures with sound so that people can close their eyes and see things. And the brief story about this is a friend of ours, I can tell you all about that, fellow ham radio operator Vic Tenaglia from Philadelphia. heard In Through the Narrows, didn't know what the title was, and he said, I can see coming into St. John's Harbor. And the song is called In Through the Narrows. So you listeners, close your eyes and listen to this. And this is hundreds of years of people coming into St. John's Harbor for a bit of relief from the rough storms out at sea. Portuguese, Spanish, English, Irish, all kinds of people. And us people here welcoming them in and maybe kicking a soccer ball around.
There you go. Let's have a listen. In Through the Narrows. And that was Jim Fidler's In Through the Narrows, his musical homage to that iconic entrance to the St. John's Harbor, and the theme which escorts listeners in and out of our Going Strong show each week. We're almost out of time, and we've covered a lot of ground, Jim. Congrats again on your new album and a career that shows no sign of slowing down.
Certainly not.
And with that in mind, I have to ask what I ask all my guests, and all the answers are different. What keeps Jim Fidler going strong?
Well, I would say what keeps me going strong, first of all, is Lillian.
Your wife, Lillian, yeah.
Yep. Second would be the music. Third would be ham radio and lots of good friends all around the world. And ahead of all of them, and maybe because of all of them, some really good food.
We all love that. I mean, what do you... This is a new question, an additional question. What What would you like, years down the road, would you like people to say about Jim Fidler and about your musical legacy?
I don't know. People maybe don't quite, they think, I'm only saying this or whatever, but I've been through a long process of, experiencing and thinking at the same time about this. And it really isn't about me, it's about the music. So I would hope, I guess I would rather see my music, seems strange to even call it my music because it's not mine, it's everybody else's, really. I just kind of scouted it. I would rather have people listening to my music 100 years from now and having it being beneficial in their day-to-day lives than, let's say, if all my music got lost and 500 years ago people were talking about me. I would rather have the music 100 years from now, even if there's not even a name attached to it. So, again, it's like a chef. If I cook a meal, I want people to enjoy the meal. I want it to nourish them. They don't necessarily have to remember my name and talk about me.
But you want the flavor to linger.
Yeah.
Well, your album is going to be launched on December 8th. Tell us quickly how people can hear your music and join the launch. JimFidler.com. 1D, please. Fidler. JimFidler.com. And all the information's over there. You can buy tickets. Get them now. They're going fast. And it's going to be live online December 8th at 8:30 p.m. Newfoundland time, 7 o'clock Eastern, which would be, midnight in the UK, I believe. Terry Kelly is going to be performing. Wonderful.
From Halifax, Nova Scotia. Lindsay Ferguson is going to be performing from Switzerland. Rory Hoffman is going to be performing from Nashville, Tennessee. And I'm going to be performing as well from good old St. John's, Newfoundland.
It's going to be a time.
It is. Absolutely.
Well, thank you so much, Jim Fidler, for being here and for your significant contribution to our musical canon and culture. And that is going strong for this week. My name is Deborah Collins, inviting you to join us again next Tuesday at 7:30 p.m. right here on VOWR.